Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope you're having a fabulous day. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I am super excited. I get to share with you 3 projects using the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kit for July 2020. This month's kit's all about Atlantis. And before we make our projects, I want to share with you what comes in the kit this month, and then we'll dive into our 3 projects. But this is your 6x8 stamp set. There is like an ocean scene with coral in it that's a 3-piece layering stamp set. This is instructions on how to create different color palettes with it. You just follow it along and it'll share the colors of the scenes that it can create. I thought that was pretty neat. You get your dies, of course. This month you get one, well, technically I would say 2 fancy dies, but it's 1 fancy die. One of them will cut out your little ocean scene. That's the 3-layer stamp, and then you get all of the other images in the stamp set. You get a fish, there's dolphins, there's even a Parthenon, which is pretty cool, and then there's lots of sentiments in here too. So this is your die set, and that very top one there is your fancy die. That will cut out like a lost Atlantis city. Super neat. Great for silhouettes. The other one, like I said, does cut out your layered background. Okay, let's take a look at our second goodie bag. There's so much loaded in this kit. You get 6 sheets of iridescent holographic glittery sticker sheets. Super neat. You get 2 of each color. There's like a teal, there's like a blue, and then there is a purplish color. So you could see the difference here. There's a teal, there's a blue, and then this is the purple. Today for our projects, and they are sticker back, guys. For today, we're using the teal colored. But you'll get 5 ink cubes this month, and I have to say I love the color of these ink cubes. These are reactive ink cubes, and I'm going to get some white cardstock and show you the colors, how pretty they are. I love the colors. I think they're bright and cheery, and I can't wait to use them again. But the first color here is called Blue Hawaii. The second one here is called Splash. So you get 3 almost shades of blue, which is great for creating backgrounds too for your ocean scenes. This third one is like a teal, and it's called Pool Party. And then our 4th one here is called Taffy. Love the pink, and these are nice and juicy ink pads, guys. And then our 4th color is bright. It's called Key Lime Fizz. And you can see how fun the colors are. Okay, and last but not least, you also get some embossing powder. This is coral embossing powder, and I wanted to share with you. I don't use it in my cards today. It kind of didn't go with my color scheme, but I did want to share with you how pretty this color is. You get a full-size jar here, and I treated the back side of my swatch paper with my Versamark ink. So I'm going to grab some scratch paper and just go over it, and we're going to take a look at this color together. But the bottle seemed really pretty. I love coral colors. We're going to add this to our Versamark ink and then use our heat gun and go ahead and melt that embossing powder. And you know what? It melts super shiny, guys. And I think there's just a little bit of texture to it too. But you can see here the little bit of a texture. Then you can also see how shiny it is. But that's everything in this month's kit. So lots to play with. So we're going to make 3 cards today. 2 of my cards are kind of similar, and then the third one I want to share with you just kind of a different way to use your background stamp. But we're going to jump in and do our stamping first. Since this is a layering stamp, I brought in my Misty, and using this as a guide, we're going to take our most solid image first, and I'm going to place it basically in my Misty on a panel that measures card front size. So it's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'm actually going to tape it down, and I'm not going to put it in the corner. I think it'll work better for my stamp if I kind of pull it up a little bit from the corner. So we'll tape it down. I'm going to end up flipping this over, so I want to add enough adhesive to where I could remove it and reposition it. But I'm adding this to the very bottom. It does overlap an A2 panel just slightly, which is nice. And then we'll put it to the lid of our Misty, and we're going to stamp our first color. First color, we're going to go ahead and use, I think we're going to go ahead and use our splash. So we're going to, and you can see how juicy these ink pads are. Okay, we're going to flip it around, and then I lined it up in the same position, and I'm going to stamp it again. Now I did have to stamp it, it is a solid image, so I stamped it a few times, and then I flipped my panel around and redid it. So we have a coral on the very top and the very bottom, and it didn't bother me, it was upside down. I just think I like the uniqueness of it, kind of it frames, it's going to frame my sentiment in here. Once this is stamped, we're going to go ahead and add our second layer. It's kind of easy to line up the second layer. You just follow your card there as a guide, but I'm using the coral as a guide. There's a coral on the left and right. I just line that up to the white area on my panel, and it's going to work out great. Now I wasn't sure what color to use for this one. I have my pool party out, but I think I'm going to use a gray. Now this sounds kind of a little bit strange, but I wanted it to look like there's a little bit of shadow in the background. So I actually went in my stash and brought in some soft granite ink. I had to stamp it a few times because my soft granite ink is a little bit dry. It's a mini ink cube and I think I need to replace it. But I'm going to stamp it over and over until it gets a real nice soft black image in the background. And I love the shadowy look that this is. I flipped my panel around and did the same thing. So that's our second layer. Now after we have our second layer done, we're going to clean up our stamp and then go ahead and grab our third layer. Now the third layer is the plant life, basically. You're going to add your coral and yeah, just your coral basically in your plants back here. Now you could use one solid color, but I wanted a little bit more brightness to my background. So they're spaced apart enough to where you could use these little ink pads and color them individually. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to line it up, and then I'm going to use 3 different colors of ink. I brought in a couple from my stash because I wanted to go with a certain color scheme, but I'm going to use the pool party here. Actually, I'm going to ink up my first 2 images with my pool party, and then I brought in butter bar. That's my yellow ink. We're going to ink up that little corally area, and then the third color I'm bringing in an orange. This is orange soda, and I'm going to do the right side first, and then I'm going to use those same 3 colors on the 3 plants that are on the left of the stamp here. Now I have to do this a few times because the ink pads I have in my stash are definitely not as juicy as the one that came in the kit. So we're going to ink up again with pool party, orange soda, and then butter bar. And you can see how bright and vibrant that is. But then you have that gray tone in the background as if they're shadows. Now I flipped my panel over and just repeated the process with the exact same colors in the exact same areas. And I think that looks really neat. Kind of frames your area in the middle there. That's what I wanted. Okay, now while we have our Misty out and our inks out, we're going to do some more stamping for the rest of our cards. I'm going to take my first background stamp here and do one more background, but this time we're going to just use 3 colors. We're going to start off with our pool party here. We'll ink up our background and stamp this. And for a mini ink cube, these are pretty juicy. You can see how much coverage it gives you. And we're going to stamp this a few times, and then I'm going to clean off my stamp and we'll just line up our second stamp here. Wipe this off. Now for our second one, remember we used the gray in our first card panel, but this time we're going to line it up, and then I thought we would use blue Hawaii. I think a darker color against that teal would look really pretty. And then I'm still going to bring in a gray, but this time I'm going to bring in the gray on my third layer. And again, it's so easy to line up. I'm using the coral leaves as a guide. We'll attach that to the lid of our Misty and then bring in our blue Hawaii and ink it up really good. This one you don't have to ink up as much because there's less solid areas in there. But we'll just make sure we get all the areas. And I'm still going to stamp it a few times. I just think this is so neat. And I love these colors together. Okay, after our second layer is done, we're going to clean off our stamp and bring in our last but not least layer. Now, on our first panel, we colored the individual corals. This one we're just going to use gray. I'm going to bring in even a darker gray ink. This is charcoal. It's a little bit more juicier, so it'll be easier to stamp a few times. But I think the gray will just, again, add a little bit of a shadow effect. So I like this color combination. Lovely. Okay, now our panel is done. I went ahead and stamped the Parthenon with that same gray ink. It's the charcoal ink. And this, I squeezed it on that same panel, so when we do some die cutting, I can use that's extra space there. Okay, in fact, we're going to bring in another image from the stamp set. It's the fish. Now there's dolphins in here, but I really like this fish. I thought it'd be fun to create some bright and vibrant colors with it. So we're just going to use one fish for our backgrounds today. I'm going to use, again, my orange soda and my butter bar for my stash, but this time we're going to bring in the key lime fizz to stamp our fish. So we're going to have greens and yellows and oranges. And I'm going to stamp quite a few, so I think I'm going to need a bigger piece of cardstock. So we're just going to bring this in, start off with our key lime fizz, and stamp this 3 times. Lovely. And then next we're going to use our little orange fizz, ink our fish up, and stamp this 3 times. And originally I was just, again, going to go with the yellow, the green, and the orange as my little color combination. I think this looks really great against the blue-green background. But I kept looking at that taffy ink pad, and I thought that is such a pretty color. That would make a real pretty lipstick. I don't encourage anybody to try it out as lipstick, trust me. But I'm gonna color in some pink fish too. So we have a nice bright 12 fish background. Actually, that kind of creates a real pretty card too. Okay, let's bring in all the panels. This is all the stamping that we're going to do for all 3 cards. I'm going to go ahead and take the coordinating dies and just line. You can see this lines up with our background beautifully, even with all 3 layers. I added the die to the Parthenon, and then I'm also going to take the small fish and then die cut out all 12 of my fish here. And once everything's die cut and ready to go, I'm also going to take our fancy die that has the Lost City, Atlantis City, and die cut out a panel with that also. We're going to use that in one of our cards. So everything is ready to go. Now we're going to start off with card number 1. For this panel, I'm going to actually take a rounded rectangle die here and create a panel. Just that's a little bit smaller than my card base, just so a little white's peeking out. I'm going to round the corners and die cut out my panel. And then after we have this die cut out, I did it off screen, guys, but I did take my soft granite ink and a blending tool and went around the edges to kind of fuzzy them up a little bit, and I really like the way that turned out, just so it's not a white edge. This is my card base. It's a standard A2 size card base. I went ahead and rounded the corners of that as well. And then we are going to go ahead and tape this down to our card front here. I just used my tape runner for that. And that is ready to go. Now for my sentiment, we're going to bring in some white cardstock. And for this card, I chose a sentiment that says, "Sending you oceans of love." And I'm just going to bring in my VersaFine Onyx Black ink pad for that. We'll stamp this kind of towards the center because I'm going to use a circle die and cut out my sentiment. I love when sentiments have a block font along with a scripty font. I just think it's so pretty. Okay, I'm going to use a circle die that barely fits it, but I think it's going to work out good. I'm going to die cut this out, and then I'm going to take a slightly larger circle die and die cut out the sticker. This is the teal iridescent holographic sticker sheet. It was a little bit difficult, a warning, a little bit difficult to die cut out with the backing on your sticker sheet. I kind of had to use my scissors a little bit to separate the circle here, but I wanted to keep the backing on because I wanted to pop it up. Okay, if you remove the backing, the release paper off of your sticker, it kind of gives it, your sticker's pretty thin. So I kept it on, and it was a little bit more difficult to die cut. If you were to use a metal shim, I think it would cut like butter. Okay, after I added 3 of my fishies, I chose the orange, a yellow, and then a pink. I went ahead and add dots of glue all over my background and add my fishies. I did put, I call them fishies, guys, sorry. But I did pop them up with foam adhesive, and then added some clear bubbles, and then also some sparkle to the coral area in the back. I used some Ranger Diamond Stickles. But that finishes off card number 1, and I love the way it turned out. For card number 2, we're jumping in, and I'm gonna, now, okay, I have to tell you, this month Hero Arts had a fancy porthole window die, and I wanted it so bad, but I procrastinated and I waited too long because it sold out. I love this, and I thought, you know, it'd be pretty easy to recreate something similar. It's not as pretty, but this is what the die looks like. I really wanted it. In fact, if you go to the Hero Arts store, you can click on notify me when it's back in stock, and so that's what I did. But I love that die. I thought it was so unique, and so I thought we would kind of recreate it. Again, it's not going to be as pretty, but I think we can do something similar. So I die cut out a frame here that will fit in my window that I cut out in my panel there. I added adhesive to this top side here. I'm using the grid lines on my mat, kind of centering it, and then I have 1/4 inch strips, and I'm just going to add 4 of them, kind of creating a tic-tac-toe pattern right down the middle. And I did let the outside edges overhanging. We're going to end up trimming those off. Now, as I got ready to adhere my next 2 pieces, I didn't measure very well, and so they were the wrong sizes. I'm using 1/4 inch strips, and those you can definitely tell they were a little bit off when I was trimming them out. So I just recut a few more. But hindsight, I think I would make these a little bit smaller, guys. So if you can line it up and create smaller than 1/4 inch strips, I think it would look better. But I'm going to trim off the excess that's overhanging, and then add a very thin strip of foam adhesive all along the edge of my window here. And I think it turned out pretty neat. Definitely not as pretty as the die that I wanted to get, but it's turned out pretty neat. Okay, we're going to line it up over our window, and since we have foam adhesive, there's a little dimension there, and it lines up perfectly. The window and then on the inside frame are the same circle die size. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. For this card, I chose Deeply Grateful for You. I think it goes great with the porthole here. I'm going to use my same Versamark ink, and I'm going to stamp that right below the window, and then that's ready to go. And you can see in my background, I went ahead and trimmed down the left and right of my stamped and die cut panel there, and then I used my tape runner and adhered it to the sticker sheet. So that's all ready to go. I already trimmed the left and right. I removed the release paper off the sticker, and I added it directly to my card base. And then I thought we'd add the Parthenon right in the middle, but guys, I think it was just too busy. There was too much gray in that little porthole area, and so we're gonna just set that aside for another card, another day. We're gonna just add our 3 little fish. I chose the same, well, I chose a green, a pink, and an orange here for this card. And then we're gonna go ahead and dot this little guy's eye. Actually, on all of my fish, I dotted with my black marker. I had a little eye on them because they just need to see. We're gonna remove the release paper off of our front panel here, and you can see the panel size is slightly smaller than my card base. And as I went to go put this down, my fish were kind of getting drowned out with those big old tic-tac-toe lines, so I'm going to remove those and then replace them. This way you can get a little bit more of a visual scene on the front, and I think that turned out better. Last but not least, for this card, I added some clear bubbles too, and then that finished us off card number 2. Now card number 2 and card number 3 are pretty much similar, but it just gives you a different idea on how to create with the card kit, I think. Both are different but similar. I'm using the same teal holographic sticker sheet for all 3 cards today. But it was funny when I took the pictures, they kind of look like I used different sticker sheets, but I didn't. It was all the teal. Okay, next we're going to take a rectangle die, and it's a smaller one, and I'm going to actually offset it into that top left corner here, so we have a thicker area on the left and the right, or the right and the bottom. I die cut out this. We're going to create a window. For both my second card and third card, you could easily turn them into shakers if you wanted to, but I'm just going to go for a layered look. Okay, next we're going to stamp our sentiment before we go any further. Sometimes I forget to stamp the sentiment, so I'm being good today. For this card, I just chose Hello Friend, and we're going to use the same black ink to stamp this. Now, I wasn't originally going to stamp right underneath the window, but I thought we would add some bubbles and a fish outside of my window, and so we're going to offset it a little bit more to the right, and that way it gives it a more full look. Now, with my Lost City of Atlantis, I'm going to use my inside window piece as a guide and just trim it. Basically, I'm doing is trimming it in half. And I want to do a little bit of a layering look for the window here. So I'll take one piece and kind of adhere it to the background here so you can see a little bit of the Lost City of Atlantis. I'm going to trim off the bottom. And then after we have this done, I have this little extra piece. I thought, you know what, we're going to remove the release paper off of this, create kind of a wavy line on it with the scissors, and then we're going to add that. We'll do a 3-layer. So I went ahead and add that just below the first Lost City. Now this Lost City piece, I'm directly adhering behind my window to create a layered look. We'll trim off what's overhanging off the bottom. And this piece barely fit. I think I should have measured it a little bit better. So to fix that, I thought we would add a little bit more of the sticker, the holographic sticker. I'm actually going to create another wavy line after I adhere my panel with foam adhesive and add this piece directly to the bottom of our window. And I think the 3 layers looks pretty neat actually. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the bubbles that are in the stamp set, and we're going to put these on acrylic block, and then I'm going to stamp the bubbles with my splash ink right above the friend, but off to the right of my window. Add a few little bubbles. Lovely. And then I have 6 fish left over. We're going to use all of them, just kind of scattering, and we're actually going to tuck them behind a few areas of the Lost City behind here too, just to give it a fun look. Last but not least, we're going to add some bubbles to this card too, kind of spreading them all around the window and a few on the outside too. And then that completes card number 3 today, guys. Using the My Monthly Hero Kit for July 2020. I'm in love with this kit. I think it's super neat. You get a little bit of everything. You get embossing powders, stickers, you get fabulous inks. I just love the inks. And lots of items you can use over and over again. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a fabulous day. We will see you again soon. Bye-bye.